We have looked at the background statements of the problem, explore the theoretical framework. Now let's see if we can touch on purpose of the study and objectives and pay attention to how all these are connected to one another, okay? So when the term, generally when we talk of the purpose of a study, we want to look at the main or overarching goal of the project. So research aim or goal usually refers to the overarching purpose, like I've indicated. So sentences stating the aim are usually quite brief and to the point. Again, we are using my student who is working with the adolescents who live in the slums. So an example of the purpose will be to investigate complex trauma and how it could lead to both post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic growth. And because you have done a thorough background, provided the different gaps within the statement of the problem, and explored how the theory that you have selected grounds the whole work, it makes it such a natural progression to talk about now the aim based on all these three that I've talked about is this. And then we come to what are the objectives of the study? So research objectives are concise statements that describe what the research is aiming to achieve. So it's like you sift them out from the purpose of the study. They define the scope and direction of the research and maintain the focus. So you're not going all over the place. So the objective should be SMART, which means they should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And many times we can get confused, which is a normal part of your growing. So when you write your objectives, ask yourself, are these specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they realistic? And are they time-bound? A good research objective will define the scope of the study. It will give direction to the study. It will help maintain focus and avoid diversion. It minimizes wastage of resources like time, money, and energy. Okay, so research objectives can be broadly classified into general objectives and specific objectives. But some people will just say, I'm just going to do the research objectives. When you separate into general objectives and specific, then the general objectives will state what the research expects to achieve overall, while the specific objectives break this down into smaller, logically connected parts, each of which addresses various parts of the research problem. So general objectives are main goals of the study, and they are usually fewer in number, while specific objectives are more in number because they address several aspects of the research problem. Another thing I am discovering is helpful for students is I tell them, look at your research objectives and let that guide your literature review. We'll come to the literature review soon. So if you have 5 objectives or 1 general objectives and 5 sub-specific objectives, ask yourself, how can I use these objectives as subtopics for my literature review? Remember, you've already addressed the literature part of it in the background to the study, but the objectives are drawing from that, but we'll get the detailed version of this in the literature review. When that happens, you don't go all over the place in your literature. You know, one cool thing, when you structure your literature to follow the objectives, it makes it so easy to do the discussion piece of chapter 4. Because again, I've realized that that's where majority of you students struggle, because you go like, wait, what do I say? And when I speak like that, I'm talking for those who are doing the research themselves. Yeah, we know some of you pay others to write your paper for you. That's between you and your God. This lecture is for those who want to do the work themselves, okay? So structure your literature review to follow as closely as possible the objectives and or your research questions, so that when you are doing your analysis, and I talk with very quantitative methodology as a background, But I think this can also work in both qualitative and mixed methods. So whatever your objectives are, if you are structuring your literature review, because you've looked at what other people have done, it makes it easy to compare what they have done to the results of your own work. And that's a huge piece of the work, okay? So remember, your purpose of the study is your overarching goal of the project. Your objectives are concise statements. They should be smart. They define the scope of the study. They give direction, and because they are giving direction, they will help you maintain focus. Let's see if we have time enough to touch on the research questions and objective. Well, we've done the objective, so research questions, which means that we come here, research questions. Some people will say your research questions should come before your objectives. Some will say your objectives before research questions. For me, if you understand it, you can do it. The main thing is for you to understand. And then after that, follow the standard of your institutional manual for writing research. But note that your research questions are broad statements that guide the overall direction of the research. So they identify the main problem or area of inquiry that the research will address. For example, a research question might be, what is the impact of social media on teenage mental health? This question sets the stage for the research and helps to define the scope of the study. So research questions are more general and open-ended, while objectives are specific. Research questions identify the main problem or area of inquiry, while objectives define the specific outcome that the researcher is looking to achieve. Research questions will be the driving force throughout the research process. And this is where your golden thread is coming in. They're connecting from one to the other. Okay, so in the literature review chapter, you will assess the relevance of any given resource based on whether it helps you to move towards answering your research questions. Like I said, your methodology and research design will heavily be influenced on the nature of your research questions. Okay, you probably notice that there's quite a formulaic approach to this. In other words, research questions are basically the research objectives converted into question format. While that is true most of the time, it is not always the case. What about hypothesis? And when we do hypothesis, it's only for quantitative research and some aspects of mixed methods. Qualitative does not do hypothesis writing. So hypothesis writing is clearer to the reader if you make the wording of your hypothesis as similar as possible to each other. So use the same key phrases and terms rather than trying to write more interesting or varying the use of key terms. Please, just stick to the formula. Try to position the variable so that the independent variable appears first in the sentence, then the dependent variable. This word order reflects the hypothesized direction of the effects and is therefore clearer than the reverse order. And so for the students looking at adolescents, a research question will be, does students' trauma experiences lead to PTSD? I would say I don't like this kind of question because any question that leads to a yes or no feels a bit too restricted. So I will probably say, how do students' trauma experiences lead to PTSD? Okay. The second question would be, what is the association or relationship? And I wouldn't want the all, so just pick one. What's the association among trauma experiences, post-traumatic stress disorder, and post-traumatic growth? And when you look at the objectives, you realize that one is a question and the other one is a statement. Remember, it's not always like that. Now, when we come to the hypothesis, we are stating adolescents who go through multiple trauma experiences, that's the independent variable, will develop PTSD symptoms. So for this hypothesis, we have made PTSD symptoms the dependent variable and made multiple trauma experiences the independent variable. So that is it with research objectives, research questions, and hypothesis testing. We will be looking at conceptual framework very soon, and then we'll go on to significance and delimitation, and that will be the end of the introduction chapter. Then we will look at the other chapters and figure out how they connect to our golden thread. Thank you for spending your time with me. Bye.